Today, we're finally jumping in and making a tier list on Dragon Ball Super Card Game Fusion World. We're going to be ranking all of the leaders as well as their respective decks from best to worst. We've tried them all out on this YouTube channel, so I do have quite the understanding of each single one of these leaders and their decks. Of course, this is all in my opinion, so if you have your own opinion, let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Now, this tier list is going to be slightly different compared to other ones on YouTube. I'll be ranking it based on the easiness of getting to God rank. So that will change things quite a bit because of the fact that in ranked right now, you can go up against level 1s even if you are a masterclass or even a God rank yourself. Which means that I think there's actually no bad deck in this entire game. I think you can climb to God rank with the right deck build, of course, for your leader, all the way to God rank given enough time. Of course, some leaders will be better than others, which is why they will be ranked higher than the other leaders. So we're going to jump into it, and I'll explain a little bit further as we go along. We're going to jump into the starter deck characters first, since they were first released, starting with Goku. I think he's the definition of a neutral deck. You can't go wrong with him, but he doesn't offer any flavor. So I'll be putting him in B. He is a very staple, though. I love the red deck. The Awakened Pulse set really improves his deck quite a bit. Next up, we have the blue Vegeta. I think he is definitely on the weaker side in this whole entire tier list, just because of how blue is played. Having 7 or fewer cards really does put you at a disadvantage because of the protection power that you do have. He's more of like push, push, push. And if you fail to push, then you are left in a very vulnerable spot. Also, the Awakened Pulse set does not really increase his value of his deck all too much. Then we have Broly. I think he's a great starter leader. That 25,000 power can be quite a nuisance against a lot of these other deck builds. And of course, green is supported very, very well in the Awakened Pulse set. And of course, he is home of the legendary 8 energy Super Broly, which is like one of the best cards in the game. He does have some flaws, which is why he's not in S tier. For example, he loses a life when you awaken. Does give it to energy so he ramps faster, but you can put him into some vulnerable situations if you double strike him at 5 health, for example. And of course, if you don't have the level 5 energy Goku, then you're going to be losing energy if you want to get his draw power in his awakened state, which can be a vulnerable point for him. Moving on, though, we do have Frieza. I think Frieza is a great leader. Very aggressive deck, but he has the draw power to back himself up if he does fail to be a bit aggro, unlike Vegeta. And he's very forgiving, where you can reset your battle cards into active mode, essentially protecting them as well, or giving you some more combo power to protect Frieza himself. So very, very good, I think, of a leader. Next up, we have the Super Saiyan Blue Goku, the Universe 7 support. When he awakens, he provides all Universe 7 cards a 5,000 power boost. I think he's just like a different version of Frieza or Yellow, how his deck is played. So I'm going to be putting him in A. He's actually really good, and I think he's better than the Super Saiyan Goku just because of how aggressive it can be. And you're not limited to the 7 cards, of course. And I'd say red is almost equal to endgame compared to green, making them very viable, especially with that 5,000 power. If you can just survive the Broly, you could probably take out the Broly with specific cards in the red deck. All right, moving on. I am actually going to be putting Beerus in the S tier. I think he is very great. The minus 10,000 can be such a nuisance to those new players, and the critical on him in his unawakened state is very strong. Luckily, red has enough in their arsenal to really deal with the no drawing aspect on their leader, which is very, very good. The self-awakeners will provide you extra cards. You got draw power in there as well with the Roshi, and the minus 10,000 is going to help you clear the board against yellows, blues, and as well as knocking out some really important cards that green needs, such as the 5 energy Goku. So I think red is really, really good here, and Beerus just excels that by minusing 10,000, so you have to use less cards or less energy cards in order to take out those important characters. Then we have Goku Black, and I think he is definitely one of the stronger blue deck builds because you can pull out the 6 energy Rose at 4 energy with a good enough setup, which is super strong, which allows you to pull out more cards out of nowhere and start really becoming aggro. He still has the blue effect where you have to have lower than 7 cards or 7 cards or lower, which is quite a nuisance. And then another weakness to this is that if you're trying to set up for that early Rose play, you have to have a Zamasu on the field, which can be really knocked out against reds, even yellows, and even greens per se at 4 energy plus. So you really gotta pray that your opponent's deck is like really bad, or their draws are really bad in order to protect that Zamasu. Which is why I don't think climbing with blue is that good, but it can definitely work because he has that crit inbuilt. You can verse those higher tier players and then actually deal with them quite nicely as well. Then we have the Trunks, which I also think is a C tier build. Remember, I'm basing this off the easiness of getting to God, and unfortunately, it's just too much effort in order to get the W, and there's too much thinking power in order to get the W against the mid-tier players and whatnot. You have to do so much in order to get the win. I think when you're versing high tier against high tier enemies, you can actually catch them off guard. But one mistake with Trunks and the sequencing of him and the recycling of him can cost you the game, which is why I don't think it's worth grinding Trunks all the way to God rank. But I will say competitive play, actually really, really good. Then we have androids, and I'm going to be putting them in the C tier as well. If you're going to play green, you might as well play Gohan or Broly because they have way more defensive capabilities than the androids. Androids are very aggro because they only get the extra power from their turn. And instead of Broly being 25,000 power, which is still defensive, and Gohan buffing himself on the opponent's turn for 15,000 extra power, androids don't have that. And if you fail to ramp up, then you are going to be in some big trouble because any of these decks above them can start dealing damage after damage. They're only this high, I would say, just because of how strong green is. But if they didn't have like Jiro's Lab or a Energy Broly and were treated like the blues here with their card set, or the reds even, they could probably be even down here. I just don't think it's worth running the androids over the other two, so I'm going to be putting them below. But they can ramp really fast if you have the right hand and the right deck, so it's not too bad. You can still pull out that 8 energy Broly really quickly, the 6 energy androids really quickly as well. So again, you can climb with any of these characters. I just don't think it's worth it running them over the other 2 greens. Speaking of greens, we're going to be ranking our last green character, which is Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. And I think he is an amazing leader. I mean, I'm pretty sure you all know how annoying green is by this point. He is just way better defensively. The draw power is way better compared to Broly. The only thing is, if your early game is horrid, you will be punished a lot by any of the other colors for sure. So you really need the right starting hand. And then after that, it's autopilot, right? It's like Ooga Booga. Just make sure you have energy, and then you are pretty much solved, really. That's why it's very easy for you to climb up all the way to God rank with Gohan. A lot of the new players are going to be failing to actually deal with the Gohan quite early, because obviously they might be free to play, or they don't have the right cards themselves, and that will give you the opportunity to ramp, and then you'll have your androids and your Broly come out, and GG's. And even versus higher tier players, if you do ramp up, you know, as you should be able to deal with all of these guys. It'll be too much for them to handle. All right, now we have Ginyu, our second last yellow character, and I think he is a B tier character. He is the fastest, I would say, in order to get to the God rank, which is why I put him in B. Ideally, versing very pro players, he's probably down here, probably one of the worst ones to have as well, because he's more of like that all-in character. If you fail to do your all-in and they protect it, then you are in some serious issues. You're going to lack cards in your hand. You're going to be lacking energy to deal with some of the bigger hits. And the late game just doesn't exist for the Ginyu Force whatsoever. So it's good against new players because they can't handle the Swarm. But if you verse anybody that handles the Swarm, it is all over. But very fast deck build in order to climb up the ranks. As long as you're versing all of those bronze and silvers. And then our final character is Cooler, and I am going to be putting him in the S tier. I think he is a nice mixture of Frieza as well as Ginyu, where he has that competitive advantage being a critical. Yellows have nice draw power, so you don't really need to get that draw power on the unawakened form. The awakened form is just fine. And then, so when you verse like the higher tier players, you can actually have a slight advantage because then you cancel out their draw. And then you still have the swarm effect as well, but with a slight tinge of endgame. And then the flexibility of picking either an energy or a character to switch to active can actually change the tides, whether you want the energy for a combo situation or if you want the character to flip, which is probably the 4 energy cooler for a blocking situation that can rest. If you know what you're doing, then this is the top tier yellow character to bring. But I would honestly stick to the Frieza just because it's very forgiving. Very, very forgiving. And there's less thinking power per se. But if you're like using cooler against Gohan or even Beerus, you'll have a better time than Frieza himself. So yeah, that is my tier list right here. Very nice and even. There are 12 characters, 3 on each lane. I really don't think there is a deck build, leader build that can't climb to God rank. As long as you have the money necessary in order to build their optimal deck, you can literally get to God anyway with any of these leaders. But that's going to wrap it up. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. I'm live at twitch.tv/JFender. Follow me over there, link in the description, as well as my Discord. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next Fusion World content.